This is you, and you're abroad. Let's say in China, where you're walking and then suddenly you see this animal. Of course, you know this animal is a cat, but then you hear the locals calling it Mao. Then you came across this animal. You know this is a dog, but you hear the locals called it Gao. Now, you're curious. How do people in fields like science understand each other when there are differences in how things are called? Well, there's a man who revolutionized and standardized the way scientists call things, and he's none other than Carolus Linnaeus. Being Swedish, Linnaeus would typically call this animal a hund, but he saw that hund is known by different names in different areas. Of course, Linnaeus knew that memorizing all those names is impossible, even for the smartest scientist. So instead of memorizing all of those names, he came up with an idea. He would create his own system of classification, and he basically forced everyone to use it. His system of classification was patterned after Aristotle's and early scientists' work. But Linnaeus took it to the next level. He introduced a structured hierarchy that grouped organisms based on their physical characteristics, behavior, and reproductive traits. Linnaeus' system originally had 6 ranks, but Ernst Haeckel added phylum in 1866 for broader classification. The domain was later introduced by Carl Woese in 1990 and is now part of modern-day classification. Now going back to the Linnean system, it consists of 7 ranks: kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. To help you remember this, always think king, Philip, came, over, for, good, spaghetti. Now, let me ask you this question. What do all of these have in common? You might say they are all animals because they share the same microcomposition. Linnaeus, on the other hand, said no, they are animals because they move and make babies. Kidding aside, Linnaeus classified the kingdoms of plants and animals based on observable physical traits. For animals, he focused on their ability to move and reproduce. Meanwhile, he classified plants based on their structure and reproductive organs, such as leaves, flowers, and seeds. The next level, phylum, was added by Ernst Haeckel in 1866, but it is now often included in the modern Linnean system. The phylum is the second taxonomic rank that groups organisms with similar major body structures and evolutionary traits. Think of phylum like the main branches of a tree, where each branch represents a major body plan and evolutionary path shared by a group of organisms. For example, both dogs and humans are in the phylum Chordata due to shared traits like a notochord, a dorsal nerve cord, and pharyngeal slits that appear in their early development. Now, let's get more specific with the third taxonomic level, class. The class is defined as the third taxonomic rank that groups organisms based on shared characteristics like body structure and extensions like hair, feathers, and scales, as well as their reproductive features, like live birth in mammals or egg-laying in birds. For example, dogs and humans both belong to class Mammalia because they have milk-secreting mammary glands and give birth to live young. For plants, both roses and apples belong to the class Magnoliopsida because they are dicotyledons, meaning they have 2 seed leaves, net-like leaf venation, and floral structures typically in multiples of 4 or 5. You must be confused by now with all of this information. But remember our mnemonic, we're just at the first 3 levels. The order is the 4th taxonomic rank in classification, grouping organisms that share similar behaviors, dietary habits, and ecological roles within their environment. For example, dogs and humans do not belong to the same order because they have different dietary habits, behaviors, and ecological roles. Dogs and cats, however, both belong to Carnivora because they have sharp teeth, strong senses, and bodies adapted for hunting or scavenging. The 5th rank, family, groups organisms by their shared traits, structures, and ancestry. Going back to our example, a dog does not belong to the same family as a cat and vice versa because they have different common ancestors.
Huh?
However, this civet-like creature belongs to the Felidae family, like cats due to a shared ancestor. Now, this is all a lot to take in. So let's just remember, animals of the same family have same recent ancestors that did not diverge, while animals of two different families have an ancestor that have diverged at some point in time. The same logic also applies to plant families. Now all this info is still a bit to take in, but don't worry, even Linnaeus himself was still confused with all this names, so he came up with another idea that marked the light for scientists and Latin hell for students. During pre-Linnean periods, you would often hear scientists identify this animal as Felis domestica carnivora quadrupes, meaning domestic cat, carnivorous, four-legged, or even longer with Catus parvus murium hostis domibus familiaris, meaning small cat, enemy of mice, familiar in homes. Linnaeus found this lengthy naming convention absurd and impractical. To address this issue, Linnaeus established the final two taxonomic levels, genus and species, as the basis of binomial nomenclature, which later became the universally accepted system for naming organisms. The sixth taxonomic rank, genus, groups together species that share a common ancestor and exhibit high similarities in physical traits, genetics, and behavior. Going back to our example, the picture on the left shows a member of genus Prionolorus and the right Felis. Though they share a most recent common ancestor within the Felidae family, at some point in evolutionary history, they diverged due to adaptations to different environments and lifestyles. Let's move on to the last level of classification, and the second part of the binomial nomenclature, species. The species is the most specific level of classification in the classic Linnaean system. It refers to a group of organisms that share similar and consistent morphology, behavior, and genetics, allowing them to interbreed and produce fertile offspring. Again, let's look at our feline friends. We know that the genus of the one on the left is Prionolorus, and the one on the right is Felis. But how about the species? Well, in many cases, the species name is based on a distinct morphological trait, behavior, or habitat of the organism. It can also be even the person who discovered it. With its noticeably flat head, scientists named the species Planiceps from Latin, plani for flat, ceps for head. Combined with its genus Prionolorus, this forms the scientific name Prionolorus planiceps. On the other hand, this animal species was named Catus, Latin for tamed cat. When combined with the genus Felis, it forms the scientific name Felis catus. So as we can all see, Carolus Linnaeus' classification system actually standardizes species identification, ensuring scientists worldwide can accurately refer to organisms. This universal system eliminates ambiguity, prevents errors in research, and continues to support biodiversity cataloging and preservation in the modern era.